Todd Howard hath spoken a second time in 1 week? What timeline is this? Where am I right now? This is abnormal, okay? In the last couple of months, we've heard like Todd Howard talk about 4 different things. That's crazy. I can't emphasize that enough. If you are new here, ladies and gentlemen, Todd Howard talks like maybe once every 2 years. He talks about like how his new game's going, and then another 2 years later, we'll learn about the game itself. And then Todd Howard goes back into hibernation with the rest of the BGS employees, and we just have to speculate. It's awful. It's awful. So the next step is Todd has to make a Twitter account. That's what's got to happen here. All right, so you're probably wondering where Todd Howard has spoken now and what it pertained. Well, we're talking about next gen concerns. We're talking about Elder Scrolls 6, Starfield. What kind of games might those be? How the engine overhaul is a lot more significant than a lot of us expected, and even a response to Fallout 76's Backlash. A very, very candid, very open, honest, upfront interview here from Todd Howard. It took place at Brighton Conference. This is a UK-based digital event where Todd Howard received an award, and he also did a little bit of a keynote on top of it here for about an hour. Now, I'll have the full thing linked in the description down below. It came out kind of late. I found this through ESO's stream. I was actually watching it alongside him, and so I did screen cap a couple of moments there. So as I'm showing the interview clips, if you hear ESO at all, that is him reacting to the stream because it is from his stream. I'll have his channel linked in the description down below. But I also thought it was kind of funny. Some of the things he says, it kind of adds to it a little bit. But don't worry, there's no interruptions or anything like that. One other thing before we get started here, I've had a lot of constructive criticism about the setup here, most notably the fluorescent light tubes that are above me. I got a bunch of them, and that it creates a harsh lighting scenario. Videos are very bright. I think the setup behind me is boring, if I'm honest with you. And so I thank you all for dealing with that. That is going to be changed within the next week or so. I have some things coming in that will drastically improve the setup, and lighting changes are also going to come in that make it a little more moody, warm, and welcoming. So thank you for your feedback. That is something that's being adjusted based off what you have given to me. And now let's hear what Todd Howard has saideth, if that's even how you say it. Okay, let's roll the clip and start off with engine changes.
Well, we refresh it with every game. We too will acknowledge it needs more work than it has in previous times, and we do that between generations, and we've been doing it. I can say that the engine work we started a while ago. Ugh, I didn't want to say. Oh my God, it's been a while. We have more people doing engine work now by a factor of 5, probably than we've ever had. So the overhaul in our engine is the largest we've probably ever had. There are things we do that we still like, the way we build our worlds, the way people can mod it. These are things I think that are fundamentally good about our tech stack. But from rendering to animation to pathing to procedural generation to, I don't want to say everything, it's a significant overhaul. It's taken us longer than we would have liked, but it's going to power what we're doing with Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. And I think when people see the results, they'll be hopefully as happy as we are with what's on the screen, but also in how we can go about making our games. That feels, I've never seen anything like this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And can I do this, and can I do this? So that moment, I still think we can do in new ways.
So we already knew in a couple of videos I've made between the Starfield overhaul of animations, as well as Todd Howard himself saying that Starfield is going through its biggest engine overhaul since Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, that something is changing. And Todd Howard went a little bit more in depth on some of the stuff that I highlighted through job listings. He mentioned how they have 5 times the people working on engine and tech than they did previously, which is really significant. I had speculated that, like I said in an older video, but to get actual verbal confirmation that something going on is really good news. A lot of people complain about the creation engine. Part of me thinks it's also the way that Bethesda optimizes for their engine. They just, make buggy games, honestly. But it's good that Todd is being open, acknowledging it needs more work. This will be a theme throughout this. Like, stay till the end when we talk about the Fallout 76 Backlash. You will be very surprised how open Todd was about how bad it was at launch. And he uses some surprising words, in my opinion. During the engine changing section, he also emphasizes the significance of this overhaul and that it'll actually be powering Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. Now, earlier in this interview, they talked a lot about the opening of Fallout 3. Todd Howard mentioned how this was his favorite opening that Bethesda Game Studios has done thus far, and he wants to recreate a similar feeling and that there are new ways that they can possibly do that for players. Now, I think that's sort of what he was hinting at for maybe Starfield. That's speculation on my behalf. But I could totally see an opening in Starfield where they end you at a prologue point where you can sort of see multiple planets that you can get into your ship and fly to, and you're like, whoa, I can go to that planet or that planet. Like, that would be Fallout 3 possibly on a whole nother level. But still, it's good that technology is being taken seriously by Bethesda, that they acknowledge they were behind, that they acknowledge it took a little bit longer than it should have. So this is, once again, good news. Now, on to the next clip about online games. Will Bethesda Game Studios ever do an online game again? Yeah, let's just roll it.
Put it out there 24/7 live before we're really charging people, you know, full price game to
Don't
play.
have a 2-week
You really have to
beta
beta test
period.
these things for a long period of time, 24/7, with live players. So they are a different animal than a regular single player game that we would do. But I would never. It's been a really positive experience for us. It's made us much better developers. It's made us better connected with our community.
That's true.
And so I can't say it's going to be a one-off. Obviously, the stuff we have coming, Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, are single-player games, but I wouldn't rule it out in the future. It's been a very positive experience.
Okay, so I know a lot of people's hair stood up on the back of their neck. They're like, oh my God, he said never say never. He doesn't want to go ahead and walk away from it. He mentioned how 76 was a positive experience, and I do understand that to some extent. I know a lot of people did actually roll their eyes, but I think you can understand that as a studio that banged out like 3 or 4 Game of the Year titles in a row, Morrowind, Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim, you know, they needed a little bit of humbling, in a manner of speaking. But I do think the learning of 76 was positive, and I do believe it would have made them better developers. And I will say, Bethesda Game Studios, if you've been around here since, say, 2014, used to be a company that was dead silent for months on end, and they come out and talk. Now they're a frequent presence. They're always talking about the next update, the next hot fix. They very much do communicate with the 76 audience, and hopefully that transfers over into Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. Now, speaking of those two titles, he did firm up once more, and we did hear about this. Pete Hines had actually said it in an older interview that Starfield would be another typical Bethesda Game Studios game. He didn't really use, if I recall properly, the choice words of, oh, it's going to be single player, but hearing Todd Howard say, like, yes, Elder Scrolls 6 is single player, yes, Starfield is single player, I trusted Starfield would have been. Elder Scrolls 6, to me, is a lot more significant. Knowing that will be a single player game is really relieving. I had a feeling, and I think it was just this last episode of the Ham Radio podcast, I had speculated that at one point or another, Todd Howard had said that the technology that they had in mind that needed to be ready for them to do Elder Scrolls 6 was not present. And I thought that they might be taking Elder Scrolls Online and bringing it to a whole nother level, where it's almost like a Elder Scrolls co-op experience with like huge wars, and it brings it to a more next generation experience. I kind of thought that might be the path that they were considering taking, given the fact that they didn't just experiment with online gameplay with 76 for no reason. But it doesn't seem like this is going to be a one-off. There's a chance after Elder Scrolls 6 that maybe Bethesda Game Studios does something online, and that'll be very interesting to see, right? Because if their technology moves forward and they show that they are capable of making the games that they once did, which there's absolutely still room for that, a lot of the same talent that helped make those games is still present at Bethesda Game Studios. So I think there stands a good chance for them to bounce back. It'll be interesting to see, you know, when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out in like a decade. It'll be cool to have that talk. Hopefully we're still around to have that discussion. Next, he talks about next gen. He was asked a question about if he were to make Skyrim for current consoles, what exactly would he implement that he couldn't do in the current version of the game that was released, say, on the 360, the PS3, and the PC at the time?
Probably just the amount of NPCs, and there, obviously you get the fidelity, right? So the graphics will be better, but whatever. The amount of NPCs and the feeling of the other people in Skyrim and how they react to you. The cities are, in your mind, like you've been to Whiterun and that's this big city, but it's not.
No.
And maybe there's 20 people walking around total.
So of course, yeah, graphical fidelity, and I don't think I need to really get into that one, but NPCs is interesting because that does indicate where with the technology has expanded with Bethesda Game Studios and new consoles that maybe something like Starfield or of course Elder Scrolls 6, these cities need to be more lifelike. I think that Bethesda Game Studios did a really good job with something like Skyrim. I know he kind of talked down on Whiterun, but since everyone had their own paths and objectives to complete in the world, and they were always doing something, and at night they'd go to sleep, I do feel the cities were believable despite their low population. I think Bethesda Game Studios actually managed well with the resources they had for them. So I only can get excited at the idea of like Starfield having more boastful, bigger, more populated cities. I do wonder how they're going to balance though picking up quests, because that was one of the better things about the lower population in these cities is you could pick out a person of interest very easily and then acquire a very significant quest. It's hard to do that when there's a lot of noise around you, lots of people everywhere. I think Cyberpunk 2077 will be a good taste test for that. We saw in the opening 48 minutes of gameplay when V leaves the apartment and you see a sea of people, and it's kind of ridiculous. And that's a game that's supposedly full of side quests, faction quests, all this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how you pick up work in that game, and that could sort of be, in a way of speaking, a taste test for a very populated city that has RPG mechanics and side quests that you can pick up from people of interest to see how maybe Bethesda Game Studios could possibly implement that. After that, Todd Howard was asked if he was revealing Starfield as well as Elder Scrolls 6 a little too soon. Could they have waited longer, because it's going to be such a long wait, at least for Elder Scrolls 6. I think Starfield is closer than a lot of us realize. But when it comes to Elder Scrolls 6, it's a far way off. Why announce that? And Todd Howard did repeat some of the things we've heard in previous years, but he added on to these thoughts a little bit more, and I thought once again what he said was quite useful information.
Yeah, the reason we announced that stuff is we're at the time doing 76 and an Elder Scrolls mobile game, and we wanted to make sure our fans knew, here are the things coming up.
I'm still glad
we knew at the time, look, these things are going to be a ways off, but it still felt better to engage and say, here's what we're making. Look, it's going to be a while until people hear about it and really, really see it. And I could debate that, right? So a lot of us say we should just start showing stuff. But then you worry about showing some things, and then people get really excited. They're like, then the next question is, when's it coming out? And you're like, well, just wait. Or then it gets delayed, or et cetera, et cetera. And we like to, as much as possible when we show it, really be able to show what the final product feels like, looks like, and we're closer to release.
I do appreciate that.
100% confident. Here it is. Here's what it does, and here's when you can play it. But again, I could debate that. I've seen it done every way, and there's no right or wrong.
Now look, I know a lot of people have their issues with Bethesda Game Studios. I understand that. I won't sit here and defend them. But one thing I will defend them on is they are really good at showing off a game and it being what is shown. I know that Bethesda Game Studios gets a lot of flack, and I totally understand it. I'm not going to sit here and defend them. But if there's one thing that I think a lot of people in the industry can follow them with, it's how they wait to reveal their games. Even though 76 turned out to be a travesty. Yeah, wasn't that good, and it wasn't as broken on stage as it was when we got it, but still. Point being is, when they revealed it, we knew the date, we knew the time, we knew what game it was. It was just there. That was it. And we see that lacking in so many other games, and I just hope that more companies take note of that. Does that mean their game's gonna be great? No. Does it mean we have to exercise a little bit more patience? Yes. But all I've seen is some companies go, here's our game, it's dropping in 5 months, just for hype to push the sales forward. And while that was definitely a part of Bethesda's plan with, say, Fallout 4, I do think that just also letting people know that, like, hey, this thing is close, that you're excited for, can maintain that. And it doesn't require this big marketing window. So I just hope more people do follow Bethesda Game Studios' lead on that. Especially when you look at something like Cyberpunk. I know I'm speaking hindsight 2020, but this is a game that looks phenomenal. But and also I'm gonna be really excited when I have it in my hands. But right now I'm just like, I don't care. When it gets here, because now the window is passed. It's been delayed multiple times. I was patient. Now I'm just like, okay, I'll continue to talk about the game. I'll continue to cover it, keep my eye out for stuff. But when it comes to my own, just like, am I hyped? It's like, like, how can I be hyped? It's been taken away from me too many times. And so I appreciate that Bethesda values that values that feeling the player has when they finally get their hands on the game, and they want to make sure that's as accurate as possible. It does lead to these long windows. There's a chance we could have seen Starfield by now, honestly. And I guess if those leaks end up being true, we have seen Starfield. But outside of that, it's, yeah, it doesn't seem like Bethesda's going to change their ways on reveals. And while it requires patience, I think it's a good thing. Now, let's wrap this up talking about Fallout 76 and the backlash that Bethesda Game Studios received for that. Once again, here, Todd Howard's response, very different from what we saw around the launch period, where Bethesda was kind of trying to pretend, in a manner of speaking, that the world around them wasn't burning down and that they weren't just muffing up the entire launch. So listen carefully to Todd's word choice here. That's sort of what I want to emphasize here. Not to dissect his sentence, but listen to some of the word choice. And I'll mention some of those points when we're done watching this part of the interview.
It's a project that changed a lot while we were making it, so we asked all of those questions. You know, the story stuff and the quests that went in the game didn't go in until, I don't want to say halfway through the project, but it felt late in the project. Whereas the survival aspects, I think, work for a lot of people. We quickly recognized that that's not, the game wasn't really hitting with this group. It wasn't really giving our audience what they wanted. And Elder Scrolls Online had a very muted response, a very bad launch. And they retooled the game and really put their heads down to solve it. And now that's one of the most popular MMOs that has been and still is. So they helped us a lot in terms of here's some things you should do. Despite the issues and the very well-deserved criticism we got, there were a lot of people playing it. There were a lot of people who said, obviously not the scale of a regular Fallout we would do, like a 3 or a 4, but a lot of people. I think maybe we did a bad job saying how different it's going to be.
All right, so word choice. Like I said, he used things like bad. Normally in PR, you spin things to sound positive even when you've made a huge mistake, a glaring error. Everyone in the room knows you messed up. You say, instead of, we did a bad job, you say, it could have been better. As in acknowledging almost subliminally, it is something that is decent and could have been great, right? Like that wordplay works on a lot of people. And so for Todd to just be like, bad, we didn't have an audience for it, we missed the mark, valuable lesson, well-deserved criticism. These are things that I think a lot of people have wanted to hear, and it's a shame that it's on this little keynote tucked in the corner of the web, and it's not something that, say, he did on the stage at E3. But I think if Bethesda conceded too early, while Todd didn't say this in the interview, he said more so that they wanted to stick with the game because of all the trust the consumer gave them. I feel like you concede too early that you've messed up, and people are just going to leave it in the dirt, right? Let's look at Anthem. Hello, who's there? No one. And it's really unfortunate, but that's what happens. So I do always tip my cap to Bethesda for sticking with Fallout 76. I mean, I faulted them for everything, every update, every bug. You know, the launch of that game, you can go ahead and watch my old coverage if you don't believe me. I was on top of them for it. But I do tip my cap to them because they stuck with it. Something you cannot say about a lot of companies. They always come in, they say, all right, this didn't work, pack it up, we're done. Bethesda sticking with it showed that they actually did believe in their idea. Even if their idea wasn't great, they did believe in it, and I personally respect that. The other more notable part is the player count. He said millions. Who knows if that's an exaggeration? We don't have the data in front of us. We do know now, if you go to Steam charts, that 76 boasts a decent player base here on PC, which I think is good and understandable at that, between Wastelanders and Steel Dawn incoming. I'm looking forward to hopping into Steel Dawn, but Wastelanders was really solid. Eventually, once Wastelanders was done, however, you started to miss that feeling of having NPCs and quests to grab. So having more of that with Steel Dawn is good, but I understand why the game is having a slight bounce back. However, the fact that he mentioned that it didn't have the player base that, say, a Fallout 3 or a Fallout 4 didn't is very telling. They looked at those numbers, and that's where I think the comment of, oh, they didn't really respond to the survival mechanics well, it's not what our audience wanted, I think that's all telling based off the player base, because Fallout sells really well. Fallout 4 was a insanely high-selling game. I'm pretty sure it shipped like 17 million units in 3 days. It was like some astronomical number in 3 days. That launch weekend for Bethesda Game Studios was insane on a whole other level for their company. All right, I know other companies have matched it, beat it out, but Fallout 4 sold a stupid amount. So comparing it to that is tough, but comparing it to Fallout 3, where that was sort of the birth of the popularity of the franchise, I think says a little bit more to us on gauging how many people really bought into 76. And so 76 was a top seller in the US. I think it was top 20 in its launch year, which does say a lot. It's still a lot of game sales, and I've been making sure people know that for a while who watch the channel, but I know not everyone does that. But yeah, it's not surprising to see some of what Todd's saying back that up a little bit. And also something that I've personally, I feel like I'm kissing my own butt here. I swear I'm not. I just want to make sure people know, like, hey, I study this company and a lot of others a lot. I try to be accurate with my analysis. So just know if you're here, you can try to be comfortable with my opinion on things and we can have dialogue. But one thing I've said for a while is I think that Bethesda Game Studios learned a lot from Elder Scrolls Online when it came to Fallout 76. And hearing Todd also confirm that, like, they kind of tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, buddy, pal, yeah, your game wasn't good at launch, and it was also a popular franchise of ours. Can we ask for your help on this, good sir? And they actually like did help them out. It makes sense. It was just one of those things where, you know, sometimes it makes sense on paper, but it doesn't actually translate to reality. This actually did, and so it's good. And I'm happy that it was a good learning experience for BGS. So that is all I have today. Lot to go over. Fallout 76 Backlash, engine changes, Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6. They are going to be single player only. Just a lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff here. So hopefully I didn't overwhelm you. I could have like split this into videos, but you know, that's not my style anymore. I used to do that back in like 2015, but no longer. You get like 20 minutes of me now. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you're thinking of this in the comments down below. Looking forward to seeing your thoughts. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all the patrons, all the new members who are signing up. I appreciate each and every single one of you, and I will talk with you soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.